On this side, we're doing a pretty steep hillside installation. You can see this is about a 45-degree angle upslope here. So this tree is being planted to establish forest stand on this wild hillside, to anchor the soil, prevent erosion, and to increase species diversity on this hillside. Really hard to make a planting basin and a terrace to hold water and stabilize the root crown. So we've laid in a sycamore log here that we've spiked in with a few sticks of rebar to keep it in place so that this can firm up into a nice planting site. Our site is a little bit limited. Normally we go 3 times the width of the container. In this case, we're about 2 or 3 times the width in this direction and maybe twice the width in this direction. So it's the compromise for site conditions. Our soil, though, is pretty good. The fertility is pretty high, so we're going to amend a little bit, but we don't need to do too much because the site has a lot of fertility. We don't dig below the depth of the container because we don't want the tree to settle in the installation hole. But in this case, what we're going to do, we're going down a little bit of extra depth, and we're mixing in some soil amendment into this mix, and we're going to compact and drive out the air so the tree doesn't settle or change grade in the landscape. We're compacting and driving the air out. We don't want an air pocket under the tree. We don't want the tree to settle in its planting hole. So we're driving the air out with a little compaction. We want the bottom of the hole nice and level. If we used a compacting jackhammer or something like that, we could easily over-compact. So just the weight of the human body isn't going to be so heavy that we over-compact the soil. We're just driving the air out. We don't want to be too aggressive. We want some field capacity to the soil. We want it to be able to hold water. We've added some organics to increase the fertility and the water percolation. So in this side, it's important that we have good percolation. We want the water to be able to enter the soil. So a little organic in there is going to help that. So we're just about prepared. We're going to go in with this nice Deodar Cedar, getting a new home. We're looking at the position of the lateral limbs for a kind of an espalier fan form. So some of these primary limbs parallel the trail and not onto the bank. So we're just looking at our best orientation. We want this tree nice and plumb, very straight up and down, and get her started vertically. We've filled the hole about halfway up with amended soil, and we like to use the butt end of the shovel as a compaction tool. So we're going around the outside of the container diameter and we're compacting there. Sometimes what we like to do to make sure we've gotten good water penetration down to the bottom of the root ball, we'll do a little bit of an irrigation before we have completely backfilled our fill soil. So I'm just going to add maybe a gallon or 2 of water here to make sure that we're getting water penetration to the bottom of our original containered root ball. So that's about enough. We don't want to make it muddy. We just want to make sure that we get very good irrigation penetration to the bottom of our containered root ball. This tree is small enough, it's not going to receive stakes or ties. It won't need them. And most trees are better off not to be staked and tied. It does end up causing damage to a lot of trees. So in this case, we're not going to need stakes and ties, and it'll be to the betterment of the tree. We're being very close to observe the height of the root crown. We want to honor that original grade. Very important to get it in at the correct height. Our berm at the edge of the containered installation here is just above the height of the root ball so that we can compound and impound water. We're going to carve in a couple of swales on either side of the tree to direct runoff water to our basin. This is a bit of a wildland planting. We're out of the backyard and up on the hillside. So this site is not going to receive a lot of irrigation, so we want to create ideal circumstances so that the tree will take. It's just going to have a diagonal approach to this basin so that when rainfall does occur and we get sufficient rainfall that it causes runoff, that runoff is going to be directed to this basin. So this is a way to magnify the amount of rainfall or irrigation that a tree receives. This is one of those Bill Mollison permaculture ideas that using swales and berms and catchments, we can greatly magnify the ability of a tree to capture and utilize water. So we'll probably go back in about 5 or 6 feet in both directions, and we'll give ourselves a good directive swale. Okay, well you can see here, we've got about a 12 or 14 foot long swale, bringing water, directing water to this root crown. So this tree is in. We've disturbed as little of the hillside as possible. We don't want to lose all these grasses holding the soil and preventing erosion. So we've tried to keep our bare earth exposure to a minimum here on this very steep site. So this tree is in, Cedrus Deodara, should have a wonderful future on this site.